Greetings, paper demons! Welcome to another live stream art lesson. Woo! Today we're continuing our color series. First day we talked about monochromatic color. The second day we talked about analogous color. And today we're going to talk about complementary colors, in addition to a few other color basics that I thought might be useful. Just a quick review, a recap on some of the terms that I do mention in this stream. So when I talk about color, oftentimes what I'm actually talking about is hue, which is one of the colors of the rainbow, so to speak. Another term that I use is value, and this is referring to how light or how dark something is. These two things in combination can impact a color. Another term actually that I'm going to add to this list is saturation. I have referenced in past streams, but I don't think I added it to this list, so I'm just going to add it here for completeness sake. Let's use purple as an example. So this is full saturation, and then no saturation would be gray, and then it's everything in between would go here. So that's what saturation is referring to. It's referring to how much of that hue is actually in the color swatch. So today I'm talking about complementary colors and a quick review of what analogous colors are, because that is going to come into play here with the lesson today. Analogous colors was 3 to 5 colors on the color wheel that are adjacent to one another. So for example, creating a piece of art that would use these 4 colors. They're all next to each other, and that creates an analogous palette. So what is complementary color? Complementary color actually just means 2 colors on opposite sides of the color wheel. So for example, if we were to take a look at blue, what would be the opposite on the color wheel from blue? Post in the chat. Post in the chat. Opposite is orange. What would be the opposite of yellow? Think to yourself. Send the vibes to me to tell me what is the opposite of yellow. Oh yes, someone is sending me through the psychic powers. I'm getting the message in. It's coming in. Yes, it's purple. These 2 colors are on opposite sides of the color wheel. And when you use 2 colors that are on opposite sides of that color wheel, you will end up with a pleasing color palette usually. So that's basically what complementary means, is just using 2 colors on opposing sides of this color wheel. Now, one thing to be careful of, if you say want to work with the color green, what's the opposite of green? That would be red. What does red and green mean? It means Christmas. So you gotta be really careful with this particular pairing of colors, because your artwork might look very Christmassy and you may not intend that. All right, so another type of complementary color palette you can use is the split complement. And this is very similar to analogous in some ways. So analogous is 3 to 5 colors that are similar to one another or close to each other on that color wheel. It's basically you pick a color and then it's the analogous colors next to that opposing color. So it would be these colors, these 3 colors. So let's actually put them in some swatches so that we can see what these colors look like together. Sometimes it helps to see them next to one another. It's a very pleasing color palette. So that's one example of a split complement. Let's put together a complement. Maybe we'll go with this bluish purple and orange. It's a very pleasing color. How about this lime and this reddish purple? Oh yeah, that looks good. So this is another technique you can use in your artwork to choose colors that work well together. Let's see. There's one other color thing that I have not yet mentioned. There are certain colors that clash that you want to avoid doing. I've talked a lot about, hey, these are the sets of colors that you can use together to create pleasing colors in your artwork, but I haven't really talked about, okay, here are the things to avoid. I've talked about if you're using red and green, you got to be a little bit careful because it might start to look like Christmas. But another thing to avoid is colors that make up a triforce. And I know how you guys know how much I love triforces because I'm a huge Zelda nerd. Triforces are usually a good thing, but in the case of color, triforce is bad. Let's make that a note so we know for future reference. Triforce, bad. Or clashing colors. So what are some examples? The most obvious we can see on this color wheel right now would be red, yellow, blue. This isn't like a hard, fast rule, like, okay, never use these colors together on an artwork, no. But it does mean that typically if you use these colors together, it's gonna not look great. Like, it's generally speaking, like the colors are not harmonious with one another. Let's kind of see what that might look like. Yeah, it looks very much like, even if you just use two of them together, they're kind of like, as far as colors go, they don't harmonize well. Compared to if you were to use like an analogous color palette, you can see that that feels a lot more pleasing. It's not like shouting at you. It's not screaming at you in all caps, which is what the Triforce colors tend to do. We can look at another Triforce example. Not as bad. You can make it work, especially if you're doing something very graphical, but if you're painting, it's a little bit harder for it to feel good. All right, so we've talked about analogous colors, we've talked about complementary, we talked about the split complement, we talked about the Triforce, the evil Triforce. Is there an opposite to Triforce? One thing I did want to tell you about using red and green, because I had mentioned using red and green together can make things look overly like Christmas. So one way that you can avoid that problem is to play with the lightness of the color. So for example, if we were going with green and red, I could go with like a real light green, like a mint color. So basically playing with the value of the green, so the lightness or darkness, and then start to put in some red next to it. It feels less like Christmas. Another thing you can do is kind of push it more toward a split complement, where you would push the red a little bit more to the orange side. It kind of makes it a little softer. So that's one way you can avoid the Christmas effect with using the complementary palette. That's pretty much all I wanted to say for the lecture part of the stream. So from here, I'm going to now do a demonstration. And I have a sketch that I had made. I made this months ago and kind of forgot about it. And then I was looking at the artwork in my phone and I was like, what? I should totally color this. So it's Vegeta dressed as a female Gerudo from Breath of the Wild. He's gonna be sneaking into that Gerudo city, get himself some treasures. So let's paint him using a complementary color palette. Complements are colors that are on opposite sides of the wheel. Today's color is yellow, so we would be using yellow. And the opposite on the color wheel from yellow would be purple. So purple is the complementary color. This is actually one of my favorite complementary palettes to work with, is the yellow and purple combination, in part because I really like purple. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color of the line art. I'm going to make his hair dark. I'm going to make his skin yellow. I'm going to push this a little bit toward the split complement. Put in some pink. Oh yeah, Vegeta in pink looks hot. Okay, I feel like there's the purple going on in the background is a little too much. So I'm thinking that I'm thinking maybe trying like a light yellow instead, just to give it a bit more contrast, because there's just a little too much of the purple going on. You may notice that I don't really use layers too much with some of the demonstrations. Part of that is because it just takes too long to switch between layers, I think, and I sometimes get confused. I end up painting on the wrong layer. I also like when the paint kind of mushes itself around. I think that works better if they're on the same layer. I'm going to push the complement a little bit analogous by putting in some orange, some yellow orange. And now his face is, as we've kind of observed, now we're kind of losing his face. His face doesn't have enough contrast with the background. So either I can go a little darker with the background, make it pop a little more. Yeah, that works. Maybe we could use purple, bright purple as a highlight here in his hair, and go a little darker in other parts of his hair. I'm going to add a layer. One of the few times that I do layers. I'm going to add a layer for his veil, because transparency, yo. Maybe a pinkish color. Let's go with that. Actually, we should do the same technique for his arms. So I'm gonna fix his arms. Oh yeah, he's super cute. Just needs some touch up, but overall the color palette feels nice. So that's a complementary color palette, looking a little bit closer to a split complement, because I did go a little bit into the analogous color range with the purples. I started to go from purple over to the pinks a little bit, but it's for the most part complementary. You can give this another try with another color from the wheel. Blue. Oh, okay, that's what I was gonna do. All right, I'm gonna choose this blue. Okay, what's the complementary color to blue? Does anyone know? Orange, yes. Since I am picking this particular blue, which is more of like a blue-green, the opposing color would be reddish orange. But yes, for blue, the opposing color is orange. Complementary. Okay, so my first thought, I might go with like a really light orange for the background. This could be a combination of blue, actually. Oh, that's pretty. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Figure out a skin tone. Maybe a little too orange. Okay, this is blend. Again, same issue we had with the last one where it's blending with the background, the skin tone. So I'm going to try a little bit of a darker, maybe a bit of a darker blue. We should add more orange in this. I don't think there's enough. Okay, I'm doing the split complement. Going analogous. It's happening. This dude is not happy. He's not pleased. Get me the hell out of this outfit. But hey, at least it's not pink. Okay, I think I would like to touch up the background a little more. I think that the blue in the shadow is a little too strong, so I'm going to make it gray, more of a gray. Oh, now he's gonna start to look like Goku, wearing Goku's colors. Orange, make it more of a red orange. There you have it, complementary colors with a little bit of split complementing in there. That's the end of this live stream recording. Would you like to join me live during one of these live streams? Join my mailing list so you can hear about my live streaming schedule. A link is in the description below. Thanks so much for watching and being a part of the Paper Demon community. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.